Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the County of San Mateo Office of Sustainability webinar on Zero Waste for Your Home and Office. My name is Judy Gregory, and I will be your speaker for today. Just a little bit about myself. I have been in the solid waste and recycling field for over 25 years. I have two companies, Go2Zero Strategies and greeneducation.us. And predominantly, I work throughout the state with businesses and communities to help implement zero waste strategies and programs, and also do quite a bit with developing training and education curriculum. So today, we're going to cover a number of topics on sustainability and resource management, and we will start with an overview of the Sustainability Academy. We're also going to talk about waste and resources, how they're created, disposed, and what are some trends in this industry. Then we'll talk about the embodied energy savings as well as material and water conservation associated with reducing, reusing, and recycling. We're going to talk about where all of our stuff goes. We're definitely going to share some steps that you can help conserve at both home and work. And then we're going to share information on some upcoming events and ways that you can get plugged into the Sustainability Academy. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Insoo Lim, who is the Sustainability Academy Coordinator with San Mateo County.
Great. Thanks, Judy. So hi, everyone. My name is Insoo Lim, and I'm a Sustainability Coordinator at the County of San Mateo's Office of Sustainability. And thank you, everyone, for joining us during your lunchtime. And we have some great information planned out to share with you all today in the next hour. So the Sustainability Academy is part of the County of San Mateo's Office of Sustainability, OOS, and the Academy used to be a program under Recycle Works, which was a separate division within the Department of Public Works, but it merged with the county's Office of Sustainability about 2 years ago, back in July 2014, when the OOS was established. So the Office of Sustainability is a fairly new office within the county, and we've grown from an office of 2 people a couple of years ago to about 40 today. And there's definitely no lack of enthusiasm and passion for sustainability within our office. And the OOS's overall objective is to promote sustainability in the county through the planning, development, as well as implementation of many different types of programs. And as you see on the slide, we provide services through our 4 work groups. First one being energy and environment, climate change, waste reduction, and livable communities. And for those who are interested, the Sustainability Academy falls under the climate change work group. Next slide, please. Through the Academy, OOS is offering no-cost sustainability educational opportunities to you all, the members of the San Mateo County. And the Academy's goal is to educate and train our community members and empower you with the necessary tools and knowledge for you to be able to go back out into your communities to promote sustainability. And this fall and winter Academy offerings, we include 2 webinars, this one being one of them, and an 8-week master course on compost and solid waste. The Master Compost and Solid Waste course started last month, but we'll be providing another master course in the spring along with other offerings. And we'll be emailing out announcements once the details are firmed up for all of those, so please stay tuned. And of course, if you have any questions about the Academy and our offerings, feel free to reach out to me, and my contact information is going to be on the last slide of this PowerPoint, which I will email to everyone in the next few days. And the Sustainability Academy team here in OOS is Hillary Papendick. She provides high-level oversight and direction for the program, and that's me on the right side, and I manage the day-to-day operations of the Academy. And OOS is also working very closely with Cascadia Consulting Group and their team to provide Academy offerings to our county community members. And our Academy team is working really hard to make sure that our community members have the opportunity to take full advantage of this great county program. That's it. Back to you, Judy.
Great, thanks, Insoo. One thing I want to bring to everybody's attention, just so I don't forget before we move on, if you look in your panel, there is a button towards the bottom or a line towards the bottom that says handouts 4 of 5. If you click the plus on that, there's 4 handouts for you to open and download, and you can only do that during the presentation. So while I'm presenting, you have some time to go ahead and open those and download those to your desktop. Great. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive right in. We're going to talk about, are they waste or resources, and maybe it's just a matter of how we're looking at things. So have you ever thought about what you're actually throwing away? The things that we throw away in our trash, we typically refer to as municipal solid waste, garbage, trash. These are the things that we throw into landfills, sometimes into incinerators, not as much in California. But when you look at what those things are, it's comprised of durable goods. That can be anything from appliances, bulky goods, furniture, electronics. We throw away non-durable goods such as paper products, disposable products. Clothing can be both durable and non-durable. We throw away containers and packaging. We throw away a lot of organic food and plant debris, and we throw away construction and demolition material. So therefore, when you really think about the materials that are getting tossed out, are they solid waste or are they resources? Which is where we talk about a mindset change to really looking at what we no longer need as resources and shifting to resource management versus solid waste management. So what is our example of waste? Well, our example is nature, and in nature, everything is inside a closed loop system, and we actually don't have naturally occurring waste in nature. There's no away, and basically our Earth system uses all waste byproducts from one system to fuel another. So I'm not saying there's no waste. There may be wasteful byproducts, but those are used to fuel other natural systems. And the concept of waste is a relatively new concept, which is a product of human culture. And it's something which we need to create better systems and processes to manage versus throwing them into landfills. A little bit of a historical perspective, just to give some background. There is evidence of people, humans, actually wasting going all the way back to the time of hunter-gatherers when people were in small villages and communities. There's quite a bit of evidence looking back at Mayan civilization, early Native American civilization, to show that we actually were and have been a wasteful society, as much as 5 pounds or more, even in those times. However, much of the material was left for the planet. It was left for animals. It was left for the earth to then use those wasteful products by the people of that time. Where we notice our first real recognizable municipal solid waste handling systems is back in early Greece time, around 500 BC, where at that time people were told to dump their waste in a spot about a mile outside of town. But then we don't really see a lot of formal waste management practices until the 1800s, which is when we began to industrialize here in the Americas as well as in other places around the world. And at that time, people began to live in towns and communities where the practice was actually just to throw your stuff outside of your home into the streets for the animals to get. But what ended up happening is that we got struck with a lot of diseases, bubonic plague, cholera, typhoid fever, and they ultimately linked this to unsanitary conditions in cities. And so that's really the first time that we start to see local government begin to put policies into place to manage what's being thrown away. So how is garbage created? Well, it's leftovers of things that we dispose of, right? We all have these in our house. But is that really garbage? Is the fact that we no longer need something or that it doesn't have a value to us mean that it's garbage? Well, what the EPA has to say about it is that 75% of what we throw away is recyclable, but we're only recycling about 30% of it. And why is that? Well, because a lot of things that look like trash to us aren't necessarily waste. For instance, metal. You know, we can easily recycle metal, and we'll talk a bit more about that, into new tin cans. We can repair broken products in our home this is an example of a bike, but there's many things, and repair used to be a very huge form of business. And then even something, food waste, that we think, wow, there's really nothing you can do with that. Well, we can actually make nutrient-rich compost out of food waste. And a lot of food that goes to waste in America is still edible food as well. So this is one way why so much of what we throw away and we think is no longer useful actually has a value. And basically what happens is when recyclable, reusable, compostable materials are thrown into the garbage, and then they go into a trash truck, and they're compacted and mixed together, they are so degraded by that process that they can no longer be effectively reused, recycled, or composted. And as you can see, you take all those resources and you squish them together, and this is what you get. And to try and pull recyclables out of there or do anything with this afterwards is very cumbersome and very problematic, and the systems in place to manage them aren't really there to create good products. So we want to try and avoid that. So just a little bit on our disposal and recycling data. I'm going to take you from national all the way down to local. So the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, what we refer to as the U.S. EPA, was created in 1970, and it's been tracking disposal for over 30 years. So we have a lot of data out there. And according to the U.S. EPA, their 2013 report, we generated about 254 million tons of trash each year, and it's been rising. Of this, about 87 million tons is either recycled or composted. So we have 21 million tons composted nationally, about 65 million tons recycled, another 29 million tons incinerated, and 137 million tons thrown in landfills. And while the recycling and composting efforts are significant, I definitely don't want to downplay that. The fact is that our generation in total has tripled over the last 50 years, and our disposal has doubled. So we're throwing away way too much materials, and these materials have a value to our economy, our planet, and our population. We call it people, planet, and people. Sorry about that. We'll call it the triple bottom line. And what it means is that when our people, planet, and profit go into it, we refer to that as sustainability. So you'll hear the word sustainability a lot, and it focuses around those 3 Ps, or the triple bottom line. So statewide, here's a graphic that shows our disposal for all of California. Then it breaks it down on commercial, residential, and self-haul. And what I want to show you, I'm going to bring up my little marker here, is that this is California overall, and I want you to see this number. 37% of what we throw away is organic on a statewide. And actually, I have a close-up of that. We have another, let me erase those. Let me erase that. We have quite a bit of material as well in the paper, so 17% paper, 10% plastic, quite a bit over here under the inerts. Those would be materials like wood, construction debris, maybe people do home repairs and home remodeling, things like that, that ends up in their disposal. But a lot of our material is this organic down here, and by organic we are referring to our landscaping, green waste, yard waste, as well as all of our food waste. It's a huge portion of what's being thrown away on a statewide level. Drilling down a little bit to the local level, San Mateo County is showing approximately 4 pounds per person per day in 2014, and it usually takes a couple years to get the data compiled by the state, which is why we're in 2016 and we're looking a little bit back, but it doesn't change that much. It's very relative, the change each year. So, but if you look compared to California, San Mateo County definitely falls below the California average. It's a little bit higher than some of the other counties within the Northern California area, including San Francisco down here, which is getting darn close to zero waste. They're at about 3.5 pounds per person per day countywide. And then I can show you this slide right here. gives a little bit different perspective, and the numbers are slightly different, but this is showing that the low point in the county was 2012 with about 3.4 pounds per person per day, and then they also show you pounds per employee per day disposed, just to give you an idea based on business within the county. And as you can see, over the last couple of years, the numbers have started to rise, but that's probably due to the economic rebound that we've been experiencing. But just to give you a little bit of data. And then one last piece of data as far as tonnage, this is the tons disposed in the county. You could see down here 583, almost 600,000 tons of material was disposed in San Mateo County, and about 150,000 tons of ADC, which stands for Alternative Daily Cover, which is predominantly the green waste is chipped and ground, and then it's put over the top of the trash in the landfill. And that's something that's actually being phased out on a statewide basis. So you'll probably see that number reduce, and hopefully what we don't want to see in the county is the disposal increase, which is why we're all working so hard on getting programs implemented to reduce that number. And then one last graph, and this is really a fun graph to look at. This actually compares all of the incorporated cities within the county as well as the San Mateo County unincorporated area, and it provides information on the highest pounds per person per day disposal down to the lowest. So you can look for your city before I go past the slide to see how your city kind of compares to the rest of them. But we have Colma at the top here with 11.7 pounds per person per day disposal. And then if you look at the other end of the spectrum, we have East Palo Alto, Foster City, Belmont, Pacifica, as well as the unincorporated area, and Daly City, all under 3 pounds per person per day disposal. So just gives you a little bit of perspective of where your community fits in. All right, so we are going to go ahead and do a poll. And what material comprises the largest percent disposed in the California waste stream? So we had 69% share organics, which was the correct answer. That makes up over a third of our entire waste stream here in California. And then plastic and construction debris also got some poll responses, and those were very high as well. But by far, organics definitely comprise the largest percent of what's still being disposed here in California. So we've learned that in nature there's no waste. However, in a modern society, we do generate and dispose of resources, which we call waste, on a daily basis. There's just kind of no way around that. So what we really need to think about is how do these products, packaging, food, leftovers, and agricultural byproducts and landscaping trimmings fit into a resource management system? And what we find is that as we start to set up all these systems, structures, and processes associated with our sustainable resource management, we have a ton of different terms. And what I'm going to do is go through some of these terms and share how they fit into our sustainable resource management hierarchy. I think everybody has seen and heard these words: reduce, reuse, recycle. They were coined on Earth Day in 1970, and it has definitely come to represent what we consider sort of the cornerstone of our growing environmental movement. And one of the important things is to focus on the order in which these words are. So reduce, reuse, then recycle. And we say them in that order for some very important reasons, because we actually conserve the most resources when we reduce using them altogether. It's great to recycle, but we've still used resources and energy and water to create those products. But when we can reduce them altogether, we have the most bang for our buck, basically. When we reuse products, we get the next most bang for our buck because we are reusing them in their original form, and it doesn't take more energy or more water, and generally not as much transportation to reutilize them. And then recycling, and our other R, rot, which is another term for organics, and composting, and composting is basically the recycling but of organic material, so food and green waste, whereas recycling generally refers to the recycling of paper, plastic, glass, other types of products like that. And even though the rot wasn't in our initial 3 R's, it has definitely come to be incorporated here more recently and recognized. So of the reduce, reuse, recycle, we look at reduce or waste reduction first. It's highest on the hierarchy. And the reason is because the best way to save resources is by not using them in the first place. So by reducing what we use, we are reducing the materials consumed to create those products, and it has an exponential effect on reducing waste and resources across the board. The big picture is that we want to take actions to reduce waste. One of the biggest ones that we need to look at on a commercial side and just a systematic side is reducing commercial packaging, because there's a lot of packaging out there. We need to look at policies on how we purchase and contracting that will reduce wasteful practices. We definitely need to redesign products so that there's less waste. And then we need to look at banning problematic materials that we can't find other things to do. So some of the things you can do at your home and office to help reduce or provide waste reduction would be installing low waste landscaping, grass cycling, replacing light bulbs with longer lasting versions, eliminating disposable ware. How many of you are using paper plates and plastic forks and spoons at home? So paper napkins. We can reduce all of that just by using durable towels and napkins and plates. We can use less toxic cleaning products and look at things with less packaging in them. Now, reuse is next on the hierarchy, and reuse is definitely not new. It's something that's been around for a long time, and it's actually more of a lost tradition. I mean, if we think back to our parents and our grandparents and even look at how things were prior to World War II, not saying that we were around here then, but we've all heard the stories from our grandparents, right? Things were passed down. You know, we passed down furniture, we passed down quilts, we've passed down heirlooms and things, and it's something that's become somewhat of a lost tradition to us. Post World War II, we became much more of a disposal-oriented society. It's much more mainstream. And so now we're talking about how we bring reuse back. And so on a traditional side of reuse, we have things like thrift shops, repair shops, garage sales, and swap meets, which have all been around for years. But today, one of our most successful businesses that has brought reuse back to the mainstream is eBay. And we have other forms of modern day reuse like Craigslist, FreeCycle, Street Bank, just among a growing list of ways that you can sell, loan, borrow things that you have. I actually heard an app on the radio the other day about a brand new one that helps you sell your materials locally. Can't think of what it's called. And then there's other forms of reuse which are more creative reuse ideas. There's also repair cafes, and then you have upcycling and deconstruction on the construction site. And on a business, reuse would include donating food from restaurants, reusing office supplies, pallet reuse, reusing durable shipping containers, and working with your vendors to do the same thing. Okay, so recycling and composting, they are last on our traditional 3 chasing arrows, which is called the Mobius. And while it's down there at the bottom, they are definitely a very important part of the system. Recycling is probably one of the most understood and utilized activities of all 3. People love to recycle. It's a means for active participation, and it's that feel-good sense of, you know, I've done something good. So recycling is huge. It has a ton of value. And recycling is basically the process of turning used products into raw materials that can then go back into making new products. And recycling and composting are actually viewed along the same lines because, like I said before, composting is basically the recycling of organics. So we're taking resources that have been discarded, we're processing them, and then we're creating a feedstock for a new product. In recycling, we use traditional feedstocks, paper, plastic, glass, metal. In composting, we use organic matter, such as yard trimmings, food, sewage sludge, crop residue, and animal waste. These materials are cleaned, sometimes they're shredded, and then they're composted either through an aerobic process like a windrow composting or an anaerobic process like digestion. And the resulting products can range from mulches and composts to materials used for erosion control, land application, and also they create biogas and energy. That's why we don't want to throw them in the trash. And then on the zero waste front, this is a newer term, and we've learned about reduce, reuse, recycle. And basically zero waste is the mascot for these terms. It's one of those terms that's kind of catching on around the globe. It's tangible. People can envision zero waste, no waste. And while we say that reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot, if we do those things, we will achieve zero waste, the primary definition of zero waste is not reduce, reuse, recycle. The primary definition of zero waste is no burn, no bury, no toxins. So we don't want to throw things in landfills, we don't want to bury them, and we want to create products that don't use toxins, because when we do that, we cannot remove those toxins for safe reuse and recycling of the products later. Okay, so a way for you guys to get involved while we go through the next section is using your question box. It says chat box, but using your question box, type in something that you use on a regular basis that you would love to know how to eliminate, or something alternative to reduce the waste of that product. And what I'll do, depending on if we have time at the end of the session, I'll read off a few of those and maybe provide some suggestions, and if not, I'll provide them to you in an email after the webinar. Okay? We are going to move on to the next section. And the next section is talking about the benefits of recycling. Here we're going to touch on the embodied energy and the water and resource conservation associated with recycling. So recycling helps to conserve natural resources and reduce pollution. It reduces energy consumption since it generally takes less energy to recycle a product than to make a new one. Similarly, it causes less pollution than manufacturing a new product, and then it also conserves the natural resources. So this graph shows what we refer to as the embodied, sometimes it's also called the embedded energy impacts of recycling. And as you can see by looking at this, all standard products, paper, plastic, glass, metal, save energy when they're recycled versus making products out of them from virgin content. And we use what's called life cycle analysis to basically identify these energy savings, and it's where you look at the full life cycle of a product and all the energy, water, and resources from the time you start to make it till the end of the useful life. And it's basically very scientific. I can't tell you scientifically how to do it, but the people that do life cycle analysis provide the information that then helps us look at how much we can save from resources being extracted and used versus using virgin materials. And again, just highlighting that all materials basically save money when they're recycled versus mining from virgin. Another term that we use in the industry that you might hear a lot is closed-looped. And this term can mean lots of things in different industries, but in our resource management system, when we say closed loop, we're basically talking about a circular process where we eliminate waste or waste byproducts and we use them to create feedstocks for new products and new processes. And so we would want the system to basically prevent waste by better design and better utilization of those resources to begin with. It has to be integrated in with the resource management system. It will reduce the extraction of resources, and this is what it looks like. So as you can see in this graph, we start up here. We're going to start with this at the raw material extraction. And what happens in a system where we dispose of things, we extract raw materials. We then process those materials to create the virgin inputs needed to then manufacture products. Those go to manufacturers. Those manufacturers create products where they then go for distribution and sales, right? which is where we shop right here. And product use, this is our home. We take those products home and we use them. In a standard system where we dispose, we throw things away, and as you can see, it ends. It's a very linear system. It goes across and it has an end and it doesn't go back. It's not a circular system. But in a system where we recycle or reuse those products, they go down here. So they go for recycling, and then they can either go for reuse, and basically this reuse puts it back in the product user's hands over here. So it's kind of, it would be a circle this way, reuse, or it can go for recycling, in which case recycling, depending on the type of products, either go back in for material processing, or they might go back in straight into the manufacturer. It depends on the product. But as you can see, it's then a circular system where we're going around and around, and those products don't fall off into the abyss where they're no longer useful anymore. So some of the specific materials, according to the Department of Energy, paper can serve 7,000 gallons of water for every ton we recycle. It can save up to 31 trees. It conserves 4,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, reduces 60 pounds of air pollutants, and overall uses 60% less energy than making paper from new materials. And again, a very circular process. I will say this with paper, you always do have to have some virgin input going in through forestry, just because the paper fibers begin to shrink and you need to constantly replenish them. However, that's why we have sustainable forestry and in a lot of products, and so you want to look for paper products that are recycled and certified sustainably sourced. Plastic markets. Plastic basically goes back into plastic, so you know, PET bottles that soda comes in, you can make new bottles. The containers that a lot of our detergents come in, the heavier, high-density polyethylene can go back into those bottles, or they make plastic lumber. We have other film plastics, low-density plastics, rigid plastics. The only thing about plastics is they do need to be sorted. It's one of the things that, you know, we're really working through on a manufacturing, collection, reprocessing side, is how we can better sort those materials, because plastic is a contamination unto itself if mixed with other types. Glass is a really easy one to recycle, easily recyclable, also refillable. Germany has a very active refill program where people put their glass bottles in crates back and take them back to the stores. Glass, 1 ton of glass recycled saves 1.2 tons of raw material, reduces 700 pounds of CO2, and uses 1/3 less energy. And then the big one is metal. As you can see, all of the different types of metal above 50%, ranging up to aluminum, which 95% of energy savings associated with recycling metal. Lots of infrastructure here in the States. Very active recycling. I will say that despite this, our recycling rates for metal are still probably below 30% in the United States, despite the fact that it has high value. A lot of states, even for aluminum cans, like California, have the bottle bill, and there are recycling centers everywhere for it. We are still recycling very little of it. Lots of benefits with that. Okay, so we're going to go to another polling question. In a closed loop system, what part of the process is generally eliminated or reduced? Is it the raw material extraction, processing and manufacturing, product packaging, or recycling? Wow, you guys did awesome on this one. So 79% said raw material extraction, which was exactly right. We, in some cases, can eliminate it, but at least greatly reduce that by a closed loop system where we recycle and reuse materials. Okie doke. So we're going to talk a little bit about the local systems and basically where does all of our stuff go here in San Mateo County. So if you go to recycleworks.org website, and that website is part of the handout, if you look in the handout section and download that one, you would come upon this slide that has a map of all your haulers. And within the county, We have a number of different haulers servicing, and you can find out information about what the haulers accept, what type of special programs they have. Many of the websites from the haulers have recycling tips and special programs, as well as links to more information. So there is a ton of programs, and we'll get into some of them here. We'll also talk a lot more about them in the pollution prevention webinar in January, but tons of resources and information on the website. Where most of our, well, at least a large portion of the waste goes in San Mateo County is Ox Mountain Landfill. It's actually owned by Republic Services. They lined this landfill back in 1993, but prior to that, it was an unlined landfill. When they installed the lining in 93, they added a leachate collection system that collects between 20 and 30,000 gallons per day of leachate that is treated over in San Carlos. So that gives you an idea of how much material, and I'll talk a little bit about leachate, so keep that number in the back of your mind. The landfill accepts between 3,000 and 3,500 tons per day, and it's actually slated to close in 2040. And a lot of that will probably depend on how well we keep material from going in there. The less we put in the landfill, the longer the life, and we don't want to continue to open new landfills anywhere in the U.S. So one of the goals is to really extend the life of the landfills that we have and not have to make new ones. They also installed an energy collection system that powers 10,000 homes. They accept municipal solid waste as well as hazardous waste at this landfill. Other disposal in the local area, Hay Road Landfill, Fink Road Landfill, and Newbie Island. And then a lot of what we use is transfer stations. So a transfer station is a place where the materials are basically just taken to, they're unloaded, and then they're reloaded into much larger trucks called transfer trailers. And those transfer trailers then take the material to a farther, more distant landfill. So you've heard of the NIMBY, not in my backyard. Well, those landfills exist somewhere. So when material isn't being disposed in San Mateo County, it's going to somebody else's area where they live and it's being disposed. A little bit about landfills. Our first modern day landfill built in the US was in 1934 in Fresno. And prior to that, we didn't really have a regulated form of disposal. And even though landfills started being used at that time, we really didn't start regulating them until probably the 1980s, when the government really got involved and said, we have these landfills, but look at all the destruction they're doing to the environment. We need to line them. We need to have gas collection systems because they were basically wreaking havoc on the environment. Prior to that, we just had these open pits where we were throwing not only trash from our homes, but toxic waste from industry, all being mixed together. And basically, two things happen in a landfill that are very destructive to the environment. One is the creation of methane, which is a very strong greenhouse gas, and that is produced from the organic material going in the landfill when it's covered with dirt. And as it gets buried, it's completely deprived of air. It creates an anaerobic condition, and that creates methane. If there's not, in the earlier days when they didn't have ways to release that methane, there were a lot of fires in landfills. Now we have methane, we flare methane off the landfill in many cases. Some landfills also have collection, but even in the landfills that have collection, there's a huge amount of methane going into the environment, and that means greenhouse gas. The other thing we have is we have what's called leachate. So I talked about when you got food and wet waste, you have anything liquid going into the landfill, and then you have rain coming down through it. As it breaks down, it creates a soupy, sludgy product called leachate, and that seeps down into our water tables and contaminates water, groundwater, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So the methane is one of the key drivers for zero waste, and has been the connection between wasting and greenhouse gas is something that we've been working on for a while, and scientists all over the world have actually been documenting the effects of methane and greenhouse gas and landfills for about the last 20 years. Landfills are the largest man-made source of methane. So we do have methane created by animals, farm animals, and other processes, but man-made landfills are the largest source of greenhouse gas. Methane is 72 times more potent than CO2. So when you talk about the amount of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, they usually compare that to CO2. CO2 has, carbon dioxide has a 100-year lifespan. So they look at all other greenhouse gases and compare their potency over the 100-year lifespan of carbon. However, methane only has a 23-year lifespan, 20 to 23 years. So when methane is present in the atmosphere, it's 72 times more potent than CO2. But over the 100-year horizon for which we measure it, it's about 20 to 23 times stronger. But I always say we have to look at what it's doing right now, 72 times. And then leachate, again, what we said is that what's created from the water and all the organics in the landfill. Many landfills are effectively built near water tables, and so this leachate goes down. Even in a lined landfill, eventually they start to break down, but many of our landfills were not lined, so it goes down into the water tables, and then it can connect in with all of our local water systems. Okay, so another polling question. How much more potent is methane as a greenhouse gas as opposed to CO2? 93% say 72 times, and a few of you said 100 times. So it is 72 times more potent. 100 years is the lifespan of CO2 and what we measure it over. So I was definitely trying to trick you there a bit, but good job. All right, so now we're going to look at residential and commercial ways that we can conserve at home and work. And I know we're getting close to the end of our lunch time here, so I will go through this and try and share as much as I can in our limited amount of time. So the thing I really want to show you on this slide is we talked about the overall organics and how in the statewide it was around 37%, but residentially nearly half, 45% of what is thrown away from our home is organic. So we have yards with landscaping, we cook meals, so we have a lot of food and organics going in there, and we have a lot of food that was edible before we threw it away. It either spoiled. So lots of things going into our residential waste stream that we can look at diverting. Other big ticket items in the residential waste stream are paper, and we have a lot of plastics as well, and then household items from inerts, wood, things like that. But paper and organics are the two biggies. And the reason that paper and plastics are so big is paper and containers. So packaging and containers. And if you combine together paper, plastic, glass, aluminum, the ones that represent packaging, they represent one of the largest segments of what we throw away, both in our resident and our businesses. And these are common materials that we've been recycling for years that are easily recyclable, that we have systems set up to collect them, to process them, to recycle them. And As You Sow actually did a study where they identified that across the US, we throw away around approximately $11.4 billion worth of recyclable packaging each year. So it's not just the amount, it is also the value of these materials. So it's kind of shocking that even today, with lots of systems in place, that we're still throwing so many valuable things away. So at home, we can bring reusable bags and containers, pack lunches in reusable containers, choose products that are returnable, reusable, refillable, get away from single serving, snack packs, individually wrapped items, and we should try looking at purchasing things in bulk. Another great thing we can do at home is we can compost food scraps and yard waste. This is a big one. This reduces waste going to the landfill by a lot. And if it's something that you're interested in and you're really afraid to do, we have a workshop coming up next month. And then we have the 8-week composter class. So great way for you to look at doing that. And then you create this beautiful black gold product for your yard. You can also reduce your junk mail that comes in. And buy recycled products, because if we're going to recycle it, we need to support the products that are being made out of it. The recycleworks.org hotline is available to you, where you can reach staff. The website is a great resource, and I'm going to walk through a few more things on the website real quick for you, but the haulers also have their website and their phone numbers. But one of the things that I want to share with you about the county website especially is if you look under the HHW, which stands for Household Hazardous Waste section, you can find a lot of information about the hard to dispose materials, predominantly paint, electronics, sharps, oil, light bulbs, pesticides, any types of liquids at your home. So you can either go through the recycleworks.org website, and there's links there, or you can link over to the San Mateo County Health.org website. These are all in the handout I provided for you. So you can actually drop off through Thursday through Saturday at the county site. You can take these materials yourself those days that it's open, or in certain areas in the county, you can actually sign up for or call and sign up for an at-your-door special collection pickup where they'll come to your home and do it. So you have the pickup or the drop-off. They take sharps and pharmaceuticals, used oil. You can also look on the website. There's a number of used oil collection spots. Most of the Pep Boys or any of the automotive centers will take used oil back, and some of them will actually give you a 5-cent per gallon rebate on your next purchase. Paintcare.org is a place where you go to that website, put in your zip code, and you can find out where the closest place to drop off paint is. Most all of the Dunn Edwards and other paint stores, Home Depot, I believe, you can go drop it off for free. And then retail sites, Home Depot, Lowe's, many of those places will have drop-offs for light bulbs, electronics, batteries, plastic bags. So look for local drop-off sites. I will say that HHW, only about 10% is properly disposed in the U.S., in the United States, but in California, the other 90% is either poured down the drains or it's improperly disposed in our trash. So we really need to make a better effort. On the commercial side, organics are a little bit lower, but still very substantial. And then we have a lot of paper, plastic, and inerts. And the great thing is that, on our home, there might not be as much financial incentive to recycle, because maybe you can get a reduced trash bin for your home and you save $2 or $3 or maybe $5 a month. But some of these businesses are disposing tens of thousands of dollars worth of material away every month. Their trash bills are huge. And so businesses can save money. There's a huge incentive. You save the most by reducing disposal altogether. You save the next most by reusing, and then you can actually save money or even make money, get a rebate if you recycle. So commercial programs and things available through the website. If you go to recycleworks.org and then click business, you can get on the Office of Sustainability mailing list. You can click on the hauler links to find out about all the programs the haulers have to offer. And I want to mention that many of these haulers, I looked on the website, offer free recycling. The very least, the costs are reduced. So just by sorting your material and recycling it, you can eliminate that cost of disposal. There's also the Green Business Program, which is a great program. It focuses not on just solid waste, but also pollution, energy, and water. And you can get certified. And people are looking to patronize green and sustainable businesses. So if you want to bring people to your business, then green your business, and you will touch a whole new group of people that want to come use your services and buy your products. The other great thing on the website is you can actually access program resources, free posters, free guides, how-to, employee training. You just click on the resources, and all these things you can either download instantly or you can order and they'll send them to you. The San Mateo County, Sustainable San Mateo County has an awards program, the BizSmart at Work Awards, that you can get your business an award if you're doing these things. Also, if you're a small business and you have small generators of HHW, you can actually get free collection, whereas larger businesses have to pay. So it's a great service to small businesses. And then the Green Business Program is another. The U.S. Zero Waste Business Council actually certifies businesses that have achieved zero waste, and they certify people as understanding how the zero waste business certification works, so you can get certifications through this council. But their website, even if you're not a member, there's tons of resources and tools for businesses to tap in and see how other businesses have achieved zero waste. And if you're a member, then you even get more benefits and more resources are available to you. They have an annual conference, they have monthly webinars, they have workshops and trainings, and you could check out their website. For purchasing, I have 3 handouts attached in the bottom that are all related to purchasing. One from San Mateo County, one from the Responsible Purchasing Network, Cal Recycle. There's a link to there in your handout as well. All 3 of those have tons of tips and information on purchasing policies. EPPP, also known as environmentally preferable purchasing, can save businesses money, it conserves resources, it reduces waste, it improves efficiency, and there are so many resources out there for businesses to tap into this and really grow our recycling infrastructure. I'm not going to go over these, but these are 10 tips for how businesses can get started and what they should look for in a purchasing practice, and we'll send this this handout to you, the PowerPoint, so you can take a look at this. One of the things I definitely wanted to highlight was the flowtobay.org/purchasing. They actually have an online class, Sustainable Purchasing 101. I think it was 8 video webinars that you can go watch from experts talking about setting up sustainable purchasing. It's a 8-class program that you can go through, and then they have a bunch of other mini classes on green cleaning, green lighting, reducing battery waste, office electronics, and paint that you can get involved with as well. This link is in your handout. If you're interested in green purchasing, definitely go to this website because tons of great information. And then electronics are huge. Electronics use a ton of energy. The electronic disposal is very toxic to the environment. So managing our electronics, we are in a digital age. Tons of electronics coming in, going out, coming in, going out. We need to manage sustainably and responsibly manage them. So the State Electronics Challenge is primarily geared towards more governments and tribal and institutions, but great information for businesses. And look at all these links they have. Planning for electronic purchases, what purchases are green, which ones are energy efficient, how to reduce paper usage in your electronics, how to reduce and donate them, even how to sanitize them properly. Tons of links to awesome information about electronics in there. And then for both businesses and residents, the RecycleWorks website has information on solar power and how you can get that installed. There's rebates and incentives. You have energy efficiency information, the Energy Watch, climate change, sustainable landscaping, sustainable diets. I don't have it up here, but there's tons of information on sustainable transportation and water conservation as well. I want to say thank you for attending. Thanks to Insue for being with us, and to all of you for sharing your lunchtime with me today. All right, have a great one, everybody. Take care.